Councillors, President of BLE, Captains and Presidents of the many clubs represented here, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be invited to this function, and it's always very nice to come to the city of Limerick. Indeed, it's an honour to come to Limerick when you're celebrating something in the sport arena, because this is a city with a very proud tradition in sport and indeed in the commitment of so many voluntary people to sport and to young people. My colleague Ronnie Delaney and I have either jointly or when it wasn't possible for us both to be here, some one of us have been attending or have attended all of the Sports Service Awards events that have been conducted here. And I would like that our presence here would be regarded as a tribute to the City of Limerick Vocational Education Committee and its CEO, Mr. Moise Kelly, and the Sports Advisory Body for all the work that they do for COSPO during the year. It may not be generally realised that whilst COSPO is the government agency that advises the Minister for Sport on sporting matters, it is the VEC and their sports advisory body that really do all the work and deliver on our policy and ensure that the message is carried forward. The City of Limerick VEC Sports Advisory Body is in the forefront of all the sports advisory bodies in the country. They are one of the most progressive and far-seeing of any of the sports advisory bodies in Ireland. Indeed, what you see here today is the fruit of their labours. They were progressive enough and had enough initiative to think up this brainchild, to honour people who are not normally honoured, the people who give day in and day out in the service of sport. I can tell you that the brainchild that was nurtured by Gerry Burke and by Mary Costello and all the other members of the committee is now being followed by many of the other sports advisory bodies throughout the country. I think it's good for sport that somebody had that foresight, had the initiative to do this. As Kieran said when he was standing up here, everybody follows the winners. But what about all the others? And as you see daily in the papers, all our elite sports people, they're acclaimed widely and rightly so. And you don't have any difficulty in attracting television or the media in general to come and to talk about them. But they wouldn't be there only for the hard work, for the commitment, and the dedication and the love of sport that exists amongst all those voluntary people who form clubs, who form the committee of clubs, who act as coaches, who act as trainers, who act as drivers, the wives and mothers who act as washers up. everything that's done, all of that hard work that goes on day in, day out, unsung, unnoticed, uncredited, except for the occasion like this. And I think certainly that Limerick should be proud of its sports advisory body, that they have thought of these wonderful awards to honour some of the people who give of their time so committedly, so voluntarily. Honour some of them because they can't honour them all, but in honouring the some, paying tribute to the all. People talk about the lack of monies for sport, and there is a lack of money for sport. There's no doubt about that. But I personally would hate to see the day when there'd be enough money for sport that you people wouldn't be needed, that you'd be replaced by paid officials. I honestly believe that if that were to happen, that sport would gradually die. And personally, I hope it never happens. In saying that, I think we should always be aware that certain monies are needed, and governments will never be able to provide enough of those certain monies. And it is great to see that there are people out there in industry and commerce who are prepared to come along and help. And I think in that context, you should pay a little tribute to ACC and its chief executive, Mr. John McCluskey, a fellow countryman of mine, so therefore I think even in the city of Limerick I'm entitled to mention him, for what they do, not alone for these service awards, but also for what they do for sport in general. I would like to congratulate, on behalf of Ronnie and myself and all the members of Cosboard, I would like to congratulate all the people who are being honoured here tonight. Each and every one of you truly deserves your honour, and I hope that the award of this honour tonight will continue to be a source of motivation to you and an inspiration to all your colleagues to continue to give of your best in the cause of sport. I would like to thank again the City of Limerick DEC and its sports advisory body for their great commitment to sport and for making the job of Cosboard much easier. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I have been asked while I'm up here to do a little pleasant task. Barry Costello, whose name I think is a byword insofar as commitment to sport in the city of Limerick is concerned, is, I believe, stepping down from our post as secretary of the Sports Advisory Body and handing over the mantle to Paul Hartley. I pity you, Paul, and I wish you well. I think following Mary is going to be a difficult task. She's been involved with the Sports Advisory Body since the inception of Cosmo, and she's been one of the hardest working people that we have come across in our travels throughout Ireland. Time didn't seem to mean anything to her. She gave of herself unstintingly, unpaid. Even though there was an honorarium attached to the post, Mary Costello never took up that honorarium. Rather did she wish that whatever little money it was, that it would be put back into the cause of sport and the promotion of sport in this city. I think it's fitting, on her departure from the secretarial scene, although I would hope she's not departing from sport in general in Limerick. I would hope that her boss over there, Pat McDonough, who's an old friend of mine, would make sure that she continues to play her part in the sporting life of Limerick, and particularly in the educational campus. And we would all hope that Mary would continue to be involved with the life of sport in the country. It's my great pleasure, Mary, on behalf of your own colleagues, to ask you to come forward. We'll make a small presentation to you. As far as the lamp is concerned, you know. Well, you need a light to lead your way, but at least this is intended as a little tribute to you for all you have done over the years, and to thank you and to wish you well in the future.
Thank you, Eamon. As former Commissioner the Garda Síochána says, both he and Ronnie have been with us virtually every year since the inception of the awards. Now, we will proceed with the awards, and we will call on those who have citations to read. The awards are being made on an alphabetical basis. So if you look at your programs there, you will see that it is done on a name basis. The first to receive his award is Gerry Barry for his contribution to boxing. And to read the citation, I call on Tony DeLockery to do the necessary recommendations and thoughts. Gerry Barry for boxing.
Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the first recipient of the award tonight, Gerry Barry. Gerry came into the club about 10 years ago. He brought down his young lad to the club to join the boxing club, and he'd done so for a few weeks, and after a few weeks I plucked up the courage to ask Gerry would he help out in the club, having no previous background in boxing. Gerry came down and he helped out and got stuck into the club. He was available to drive the lads here and there, and any task that he was asked to do, he done it. But not satisfied with this, Gerry wanted to get more involved, so he undertook a boxing coaches course, which for someone coming from boxing is not a great step, but for someone with no involvement prior to boxing to go up and do a coaching course, it was a great task. And he done it and he passed with flying colours, and I think it's a tribute to the man and the dedication that he has and the commitment to whatever he puts his hand at, and no better man for the award than Gerry Barry.
Bring it on.
Now, Tony DeLockery is down there smiling, and I know why he's smiling. Tony on many occasions has represented Ireland in the ring, and very successfully. And I know for a fact that to come up here and read that citation held a greater terror for Tony than when he went in and faced somebody who was to be subsequently a world professional boxing champion. Thank you very much indeed, Tony, for the citation. Our next recipient gets his award and reward indeed for his contribution to the sport of rowing. And to read the citation, I will call Mary Costello and Noel Clancy the recipient. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's very unfair to expect me to do a citation after the surprise that has been conveyed on me tonight, but I'll try and do my best for Noel. For services to rowing over 40 years, Noel Clancy is being honoured with his 1994 Cusmore Sports Service Award. Noel began his rowing in Shannon Rowing Club in 1949 and continued rowing until the late 60s. Then in the early 70s he began coaching players and then went on to fill various management positions within the club, the organisation. He was vice captain on 4 occasions, captain on 3 occasions, vice president on 10 occasions, president on 2 occasions, Munster rep and Munster vice president on 5 occasions. He was also manager of the Irish Amateur Rowing Union Junior World Championship squad in Hungary in 1988. Noel has is the unique distinction of being one of very few Limerick people to be a steward at Henley. Selection is by competing or else by being nominated by existing stewards, and Noel was so highly thought of that he was nominated by the stewards at Henley. Shannon Rowing Club was predominantly a gentleman's club, and in fact it was written into the rules that it was for gentlemen only. So in the late 80s, a proposal went before the club to introduce ladies, and there was quite a lot of opposition at the start. But I think it was around 1988 the rules were changed to allow ladies into the club, and I know Noel was certainly very much the fore in promoting this, and I certainly think the ladies have contributed in no small way to the success of the club. Noel is currently involved in what would be a high priority on Eamon Doherty's Sport for All committee. It's called Rowing for Pleasure and Leisure, and the club have acquired a special craft to encourage people who have never been involved in rowing, or also to try and encourage those who have gone past active participation, and it's going very well at the moment. He was also very active in the Limerick Regatta Committee, which brings all the rowing and boat clubs together, and was a member of the Sports Advisory Body representing the Regatta Committee. Noel Clancy is a very deserving award winner.
Our third recipient this evening is a man who has devoted, you could say, a lifetime to the promotion of the game of soccer. His name is Lawrence Fitzgerald, and to read the citation, I'd like to call on Alan Shaw. Alan Shaw and Lawrence Fitzgerald.
Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's very fitting that today, on the day when I'm reading the citation for a soccer player, that Stanley Matthews was featured in the Irish Times. Great Stan is 80 on Wednesday, and I was a very great fan of his. I believe Stanley went through his life of soccer without ever being booked, which would be quite a feat these days, I think. But Larry Fitzgerald has got the same renown, though not from the media and perhaps more locally, but for his willingness to help anyone in the sport of soccer. I gather he was one of the youngest club secretaries probably of all time in 1959 in Ballynanty Rovers, and he has been in every management position in the club. But he is particularly known for his work with schoolboys. Many, I believe, have gone on to League of Ireland places, particularly with Limerick, and a couple even have gone cross-channel with success. One of his proudest moments was when Ballynanty Rovers reached the Football Association of Ireland Junior Final in 1976, and Larry was manager of that team. He's a great club man, and he's devoted his entire life to the sport as a diligent worker in both difficult times and in good, in the interests of his club. And Larry is a very worthy recipient of the Sport Award. Larry.
we move from boxing, rowing and soccer to golf for our next recipient. And the recipient for golf is John Gleeson. And the reader of the citation is Jim Upton. So if we could have John Gleeson and Jim Upton here, we'll proceed with the next award.
Mr. Chairman, Reverend Father, friends in sport. For services to golf, and in particular junior golf, Mr. John Gleeson is being honoured with a 1994 Cusbore Sports Service Award. John has been in charge of junior golf at Limerick Golf Club for the past 5 years and has had tremendous success through his organisation of coaching and tuition for all interested youngsters. This year, 3 of his younger golfers played for Ireland: Pat Collier and Tim Rice on the boys' team, and Orla Barry on the girls' team. The Limerick Golf Club boys' team won the Munster Team Championships in 1991, and the girls' team won the Irish Team Championship in 1990, and the Munster Championships in 1993, all of which John is justly proud. John organises junior golf on all Saturdays during the winter, and on Wednesdays and Fridays in the summer, with special coaching arranged on select Sundays with the official Munster coach. At present, John caters for 116 boys and 34 girls, supervises their play, teaches them the etiquette and rules of golf, giving them all great encouragement, instilling a desire to succeed, and especially, above all else, the love of the game of golf. John Gleeson, a most deserving recipient of this Cusbore Service Award for his devotion to furthering others in the pursuit of their game, golf.
Our next recipient gets a reward for her work in promoting Comogie. Now, she is not with us tonight because she is on a year's sabbatical from work, and she's in Cape Town, or in Cape Town, I think it is, in South Africa. But we were speaking with her about 2 weeks ago, and she expressed her delight at being the recipient and her regret at not being able to be here. We saw no reason, however, why she should not receive the award, in view of the fact that she had put in a tremendous year's work in the promotion of Comogie. And here to receive the reward, or the award on her behalf tonight, is her mother and father, Mr. and Mrs. Guiry. So the next recipient of the Sports Service Award is Marguerite Guiry, and to accept the award on her behalf is her mother.
Minister, Chairman, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to read the citation of Marguerite Guiry. Marguerite's love for the game of Comogie and her thirst to see it properly organised has driven her to play a dual role as player and administrator for the past 14 years. Her varied collection of trophies and county medals for her club, Crow Kilfinny, in all grades, from under 12 to senior, as well as runners-up All-Ireland medals with Limerick Juniors in 1988 and 1994, Interprovincial medal as captain of Munster Juniors, a Purcell Cup Intervarsity medal with Mary Immaculate College are testimony to her prowess as a player. Marguerite's contribution to the promotion of the game is also noteworthy. In her senior years in Skolcarmel Post-Primary School, she was the chief organiser of the first team to play for the school competitively. Soon after her appointment to the staff of St. Nesson's Primary School in her native Marguerite, she was instrumental in getting the girls out on the hurling field alongside the boys. She was to become the first secretary of Limerick City Primary School Camogie Board, a position she held for 4 years. In the meantime, she acted as competition secretary and treasurer consecutively for the Limerick County Board. Marguerite's biggest challenge to date came last June when she was asked to be secretary coordinator of the Comogie section of the National Youth Festival of Hurling, which was held in Limerick. 100 games, pitches, accommodation for 36 visiting teams required capable organisation. Marguerite was not found wanting. Her calm competence and eye for detail, together with her sincerity and enthusiasm and leadership, invited cooperation and ensured success. Regrettably, as Mr. Burke has said, Marguerite cannot be with us, but we are delighted that her mother Bunty, who has also distinguished herself on the Comogie field as a great Limerick player, is here to receive it on her behalf. Thank you.
The next recipient is Dan Hegarty. And Dan gets his award for his tremendous work down through the years in the field of basketball. A man whom you never see to the forefront, but who is always there working in the background. I give you Dan Hegarty, and to read the citation, Mr. Michael Mann.
Mr. Minister, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, Dan is getting an award tonight for his contribution to basketball, and what a contribution Dan has made over the past decade. I have got to know him, I got to know him about 6 years ago, and at that time he was Olympian Basketball Club, and I couldn't describe him as any other way. He has filled so many different functions in it. He was secretary, chairman on a number of occasions, in fact. And the club really has survived on the strength of Dan. In more recent years, Dan has spread his wings a little bit, and he has organised trips to America and trips from America of basketball players. And in that way, he has promoted the game in a very, very positive way. I think Dan's contribution to basketball in his short 10 years or so has been enormous. And I think I'll give you a small little idea of how committed Dan is to the sport. Their brother Ryan down there just told me before I came up that Dan was caught in a little corner on one occasion. He had entered 2 basketball teams, and one of the teams failed to turn up. Dan had a quick look at the list of names, saw there was nobody by the name of Mary there. And he decided anyway that he would play the same team the second time, putting them out a little over half an hour later. And he told the girls, no matter what happens, you're all to be known as Mary. And he got away with it. One thing Dan didn't want to do was to leave a team without a game. That was his priority, that still is his priority, and he loves to see the game played. Whether he wins or loses, doesn't make a difference to him. He loves to win. He's a winner tonight. Well done, Dan. Thank you.
Our next recipient is a man who has worked for years for soccer. His name is George Mitchell, and to read a citation, he said he can't. Now, George's work has been mainly in the area of schoolboy soccer, and not alone, as I say, has this covered his work in the past year, but over a long number of years. For his work in that area, it gives me great pleasure to call on George Mitchell to receive his award for his work in the area of schoolboy soccer, and to read the citation, Eddie McCanty.
Gentlemen, Georgie Mitchell is receiving his Sports Service Award tonight for 50 years involved in sport. George has been involved in sport since the late 30s and played with young Munsters in both junior and senior rugby. He was also team secretary for young Munsters for a number of years, and in the late 40s he got involved in Prospect FC. In 1949, George was a founder member of the Limerick Schoolboy League. In 1949, George, it started with only under 14 grades. And in 1957, George became chairman of that league and saw it grow from 10 teams to the present 186. And along with his involvement in schoolboy soccer at that level, he stayed involved with the schoolboy team Prospect and trained and looked after teams down through the years. George held the position of chairman of Schoolboys Soccer from 1957 to 1982, 25 years in all. He's currently the vice chairman and honorary president. On a personal note, I would like to thank George for my involvement in soccer, because I set about getting involved in soccer in 1975, and a few young lads, and we wanted to start a club. Chairman of the Limerick Council was George Mitchell, and he was most encouraging and gave me some great advice, which helps to form the Garryowen Soccer Club at the time. So for his 50 years involved in sport in Limerick, I give it George Mitchell.
Next recipient is John Naughton for his work in GAA. I'll just say this much, that when I came to town first 21 years ago, one of the first people that I got to know in the GAA scene was John Naughton. But more about that, I'll leave the citation to Donald Hatnett and call him for reading. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Minister, friends, it is a privilege for me to read this citation for John Naughton. I'll try and do a little bit outside of what's already in the book. John is a member of Monaghan GAA Club. He originally comes from South Limerick, out around Croom, that direction. I suppose he'd be mostly associated with Balnoak. He was a well-known referee in his time out there. He's given a terrific service to the GAA, and especially at the underage. He came to the City Board in Oak in the late 70s, and he was the chairman there, and the board took off. He was on the county board in Oak in the early 80s, and he left it in a great state after him. He was both chairman and secretary at that time. He was elected county youth officer 13 years ago, and it's a position nobody dares to take off him, because I don't think anybody has the enthusiasm or the energy to do it. I suppose his big thing was this year when he was appointed chairman of the local organising committee of Féile na Gael. Now, Féile na Gael is the national festival of hurling, camogie and handball. To just give you an idea of what is involved, it's really a 2-week thing, but most of it is put into the last week. There was visitations to 50 schools in the county. There was matches for about 500 matches. There was 86 hurling teams. There was about 32 camogie teams, and about 48 handball teams came. There was a parade on the Sunday, led by the Arcane Boys Band, 120 teams and 20 bands in it. Now, I'm not saying that John organised all that on his own, but he liaised with all the chairpersons, and he had a committee of 10 people under his wing, and I suppose a lot of them would be of strong character. It would be easy to get on the wrong side of them, but John never did that. He has a great ability. He never pushes anybody, but he brings them along with him. He's always there, just always around, and he's always saying, have you this done, have you that done, and he brings people with him. His commitment, and he was recognised by Croke Park because they appointed him onto a special youth committee for a 3-year term. During the fail, I suppose, John on the Saturday was carrying the president of the association, Jack Bootman, who was a wily enough sort of a customer himself around, and he was to be in the Gaelic grounds at around 4 o'clock to present the prizes in the long book, and nobody wanted the president to be waiting around to present. So John, of course, contacted, he said, how are we doing? We'll be presenting at 4 o'clock. And someone said, no, we're running slightly behind time. So could you delay him for half an hour? Well, I reckon the president of the GAA saw roads in East Limerick that nobody knew were there. And all the time he was being told he was taking a shortcut. But that's John Naughton. He's a man, he's very affable, he's a man of great humour. He has great wit, and he's the most entertaining speaker because, unlike me, he doesn't bring notes. Usually when a fellow brings notes, you look at him and you see, not to see how many pages has he gone through, but how many more has he to go. But John doesn't bring them, he shoots from the hip, and that's his way. John is a successful businessman in the fuel merchants, and he gives a very generous sponsorship to Borden and Oak, because Borden and Oak have sports star schemes going since 1969, and I think actually I see Jim Upton write a citation here. Halpin's Golden Amber were the first sponsors, but when they pulled out from it, John and the well-known jeweller J.J. Kennelly took over. And indeed, one night John was asked to say a few words on behalf of the sponsors, and John is a great man to finish on a one-liner. You'll always remember what he said. And he said, you know, he says, we're the sponsors, he says, you know, and he says, if it shines, Kennelly has it, and if it burns, Naughton has it. And of course, John is great to give an old spot prize, and he looks after the clubs and that. And I suppose it prompted one wag in the GAA to say, you know, he said about elections, and minister elections are a bit like in the civil service. You can canvass, but if you're caught, you're disqualified. But someone said about John Naughton, you know, they said when John went into an election, they say in this country some fellas went along with a ballot box in one hand and an Armalite in the other. They said John Naughton went in with a ballot box in one hand and a bale of briquettes in the other. Now, John Naughton is a most worthy recipient. As I say, he's a man of great humour, and I say it was a great pleasure for me, and well done, John.
I hope nobody takes offence at this. I'm reminded of the story I had about the journalist who was walking down the Donegal place in Belfast, you know, and all of a sudden he finds a gun in his back, and he's trying to think, what religion will I declare here? So he thinks and thinks and thinks, and he comes up with it. He says, I'm Jewish, he says. But said the voice behind him, I'm the luckiest Arab in the world. Now, the next recipient is Michael Sheehan, and he gets his award for his work in community games, which he has an area where he's been working for a long number of years. I call on Helen Sullivan to read the citation, and in so doing, I know she's paying tribute not alone to Michael, but to all those people who work in community games and have been doing so for a long number of years.
Mr. Chairman, ladies, gentlemen, and special guests, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our next award winner, Michael Sheehan, who is being honoured tonight with a 1994 Cussport Sports Service Award for his dedication and commitment to community games in the Monaleen area. Michael is a teacher in Monaleen National School and has been involved in community games since 1975. During that time, Michael has held positions in the area committee as chairman, vice chairman, secretary, PRO, and is the current secretary. Over the years, he has nurtured community games in the area and has brought Monaleen to be one of the strongest areas in the county. He has also served in the county executive as development officer for a number of years. In his 20 years of involvement, Michael has given his time unselfishly to the children of Monaleen. He has coached in drafts, Gaelic football, soccer, athletics, basketball, and he introduced rounders, which is now enjoyed in both the city and the county areas. Michael is unique in that he has always promoted and developed activities which include participation by girls, such as rounders, Gaelic football, and girls soccer. All his teams have achieved great success, even though his emphasis has always been on participation rather than on winning. I am proud to say that I have worked with Michael in community games for the last 16 years, and I have yet to meet anyone with as much dedication to the promotion of sport among young people. He is a most deserving winner.
The last individual recipient of our Sports Service Award winners this year, but by no means least worthy, is Jimmy Woulfe. So I call on Jimmy Woulfe, and I also would like to call on Michael Egan to read the citation. Jimmy Woulfe for his work in the GAA, and Michael Egan to read the citation.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my particular pleasure tonight to introduce you to the man on my left-hand side here, Jimmy Woulfe. Those of you who know him know that he is a man of few words, quiet man, but in the 10 years of dedicated service to Guiry GAA club, he has excelled himself. He is a man who comes to us from deep in the county. He is a native of Tay in West Limerick. My father's people came from Gerry, which is just the other side of the hill, east of it. And so, as my father would say, he's a neighbour's child. It's a particular privilege to me to introduce you to Jimmy. If you read down through the citation that's written on him, you will see a most extraordinary list of achievements. His ability to lead by all those, if you ask anybody from Guiry, he has the ability to lead, and especially where children are concerned, without raising his voice, without using all of what parents and all others seem to have to use in order to motivate children. Indeed, he's the envy of a lot of people, and I'm sure he will be the envy of great leaders. In his period with Guiry GAA Club, they were all and sundry within the club, plus his parish and his local area, were at pains to state just how much he has done. Jimmy joined Guiry GAA Club in 1984, and at that time football and GAA games were quite weak within the area, and in that period, from that date up to this, through his coaching, his help and his encouragement, they have gone on to win 8 underage county titles, regional titles. The junior team, which started off at a very low end, have progressed through the intermediate ranks, and in the previous year, 1994, they have won the county title intermediate. They're now in the senior ranks. This from a small village. I cannot, at the end of the day, go ahead with mentioning Jimmy without his particular case, without a quotation coming to mind. Any of you who have ever read Naughton GAA, there's a famous quotation from it, which on the occasion of the local hero who travelled long distance to perform for his village, there was one supporter, one lone voice was heard to cry out when it came to his turn to perform. He said, "Remember the little village." Well, tonight, Jimmy, not just the little village remembers you. They owe you a lot. They are very proud of you. They would hate to lose you. Canon Breen is here tonight, and he went as far as to say that you were a blessing to the area. You were almost guaranteed your eternal reward, and tonight you are going to get your temporary one. I know you are a man that doesn't seek the limelight, but you very much deserve it, and like it or not, Jimmy, tonight you get it. I know that the people of Guiry would like to state that they salute you, that the sportsmen of Limerick salute you, and that Cusbor, the national body, are here tonight to honour you, and it's very much deserved. Well done, Jimmy.
You've been very patient, and we come to 2 awards, the Chairman's Awards. And over the last number of years, while we have stipulated that they are not in respect of sports stars or sports people as such, there are some achievements which have to be recognised. And the first one that I would like to pay tribute to here is to Sean O'Grady, who's over here now, right? A man who has on a number of occasions come face to face with adversity, and who is one of the recipients of the Chairman's Special Awards for 1994. Sean was a former Limerick minor hurler and an old Christian star who was involved in a horrific accident in 1978. Not one to succumb to self-pity, he strove to renew his participation in sport And this he did when he took up athletics. He first competed for Ireland in the Stoke Mandeville Games in England in 1987. And he finished 6th in the shot and 8th in the place in the discus, setting Irish records in the process. Now, remember, that was seven years ago. In the Seoul Paralympics in 1988, he was 5th in the shot and 12th in the discus. In the 1990 World Championships in Holland, he set a new Irish record, went 4th in the shot. In 1992, in the Barcelona Paralympics, he was again 4th in the shot and 7th in the discus. And he must at that stage have wondered, would he ever finish in the first 3 or on the podium? Now it takes somebody of exceptional courage and an indomitable spirit to come back again. But come back he did. Disappointed, as I said once again, but not undaunted. Sean showed that indomitable spirit which true champions and great athletes possess. When he took silver medals in the Olympic Stadium in Berlin in the shot and discus in the 1994 World Championships. It wasn't his only triumph, as he captained the Irish wheelchair basketball team to bronze medal position in Division 2 of the 1994 European Championships. Let me say that on one of our typical, well, I won't say typical, but one of our wintry summer's days, I was outside in university, and I should have been elsewhere, I suppose. I should have been elsewhere, but my young fellow was running up and down and bounding up and down the side of the track out there. And I thought we were on our own. And it was towards the end of July. And I looked down the track and, you know, it was incredible. The sun was shining through the clouds, and yet it was pouring rain at the same time. And I was reminded of, I don't know, a film, Journey into India or whatever, like, you know, it was like in the days of the Raj. I saw this vision down, where the shot put area is in the university grounds, and I saw this big umbrella, and the sun was kind of shining in it, like, you know, and I saw this person who I thought was going up and down, like a yo-yo in a chair, and it took me some time to realise that the person I was looking at was Sean himself, and Declan Bruno, his coach, was there with him, and he was throwing the shot. Now, you know, people say, and we've all come across fine weather players, like, you know, but here was Sean. Here he was facing a major championship again, and I have no doubt in his mind, wondering, would he be outside the medal winners? But it is now a matter of history that he was a double medal winner in the World Championships in the shot and discus in Berlin this year. And for your indomitable spirit and your sheer courage, I salute you, and we salute you here tonight. Sean, I give you Sean O'Grady. Now, the second Chairman's Award tonight goes to a club which is a byword, not alone in Limerick, in Ireland, but in the world of rugby. And there are those who said to me that since you gave it to young Munsters last year, you would have to give it to Garryowen this year. However, whatever about Munsters, let it be said that any club whose name is actually part and parcel of the sport itself must be something special. And that is the case with Garryowen. We don't hear too many now saying the up and under, we hear them saying the Garryowen, especially in Ireland they're playing. A phenomenal club in many respects, forward-looking, and typical of Limerick sport in so many ways. Outside the pale, as it were, and you know, there appear to be no clubs worthy of mention until the All-Ireland League came along. Then Garryowen came along, and Cons came along, and Munsters came along, and Garryowen came along the second time. And they epitomise what rugby is all about, and the ecumenical nature of it. I remember being outside in the grounds one Easter a good few years ago, and you know, there was a great Junior Cup match on, and I was listening to two youngsters on the sideline, and they were on the panel but not playing, and they were wondering when the match would be over so they could go up and play for Cloghan in rugby afterwards, or in hurling afterwards. But it's part of the ecumenical nature of their game and of sport in Limerick. Garryowen has many things to be proud of, not least the fact that they have at the moment, I think it is, 7 internationals on their team. We're honoured to have here tonight one of them, Paul Bogan, and indeed a distinguished coach and overseas visitor, Andy Leslie, their president, Pat Chesser, and David Hayes, a previous winner. I welcome you and hope you enjoy your reading here. But among the internationals they have currently on their team are Paul Bogan, who is with us, Philip Danher, Richard Costello, Keith Wood, Ben Cronin, as of the up-and-coming weekend, following weekend, Richard Wallace and Nigel Furlong. Not alone that, but they have had among their members 3 Lions players. Keith Wood, father of Gordon Wood, Tom Reid, and what many people don't realise, Noel Murphy, and as is always inevitably linked with that name, Tony Ward. As well as that, they have had Mick Dyke, who has managed and coached the Irish team as a player. They were Munster Senior and Junior Rugby Cup winners in the 1992-93 season. They were the All-Ireland League champions, Insurance Corporation champions in 1991-92 and 1993-94. For their achievements and for what they typify in manliness and in sport, it is my pleasure to call on Pat Chesser, President of the club, to accept the Chairman's Award on behalf of Garryowen.
Chairman, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me here tonight to participate in this great occasion where we're honouring the people behind sport in Limerick and people who have been behind it for many years, and indeed also honouring some of the stars in the Chairman's Special Awards. It's my first official function since I have gone back into government, and I'm here because of Gerry Buck. Gerry is a neighbour of mine, friend of mine for many years, and when he said be here tonight, well, everything else had to give way, and I'm glad I'm here with you. Gerry came down to do a commercial transaction with me one time about 25 years ago. I had bought a tent. I had it for a season. I was moving up market into a caravan, and Gerry bought the tent from me. and took off to Europe. Now, I understand he's travelling to Europe and house swaps ever since. So I don't know how he got on with the tent, but certainly he liked the continental flavour and the continental air. I'm glad to be here among so many great sports people. My own sporting career was short enough. I played football with Lahal Ballyhahal, now known as Charlie Griffins. My father and mother came from the hurling side of the county, so it was always kind of a clash of cultures in our house. And then when I went to college in Dublin, I played Dublin Senior League and Dublin Championship for a couple of seasons. I was what you'd be described in the greatest put down in sport, a lovely minor. Later on I did a spell with the swimming, and I was involved in St. Paul's Swimming Club. And I'm still doing a bit of that. So I'm not totally unused to the sporting occasions. I'd like to congratulate everybody who has got the awards here tonight. And I think it's worth reading them out again. Gerry, Barry, Noel, Clancy, Lawrence Fitzgerald, John Gleeson, Marguerite, Garryowen, Ben Hegarty, George Mitchell, John Naughton, Michael Sheehan, and Jimmy Woulfe. And they come from different sports and different backgrounds, but they've got something in common. They gave of their time to help other people to be stars. They gave of their time and their energy and the time that many of them could have spent with their families to organise sport, to make the arrangements, to be there behind the scenes, always encouraging, always advising, always dedicated, while others took the limelight. Do you know that song, The Wind Beneath My Wings? Well, there's a lot of people here tonight who walked in the shadows while other people walked in the spotlight. And yet, there'd be no stars if you didn't have the dedicated people that we have here tonight. And I'm honoured to be here and proud and thankful that you have allowed me to be associated with this occasion. We have some of the stars here tonight as well, of course. Sean O'Grady, great athlete, fantastic athlete. Great to be here, great honour for me to present that award here tonight, Sean. And Garryowen FC, who I've been known to support on occasions, travel to see him. It's great to see him here tonight as well. And I'd like to congratulate Pat Chesser and all in Garryowen. I think we're lucky in this city that we have so much sport and so many sporting people. And we're represented very well at all levels in all sports. And in recent years, since the Rugby League came into its own over the last 4 seasons, I think the merits of Limerick Rugby have become known far and wide. And the great teams in Limerick have all contributed to that. And I'd like to congratulate Garryowen RFC tonight for being selected by the chairman for a special award here tonight. I have one very pleasant task to do before I sit down, and that is to make a small presentation on behalf of all of you to 2 distinguished gentlemen who are here amongst us. The distinguished chairman of Crossbar, Eamon Doherty, and great star of stars, Ronnie Delaney. I saw Jimmy Woulfe coming up there tonight from Brewery. I remember having the clearest picture in my mind is watching Ronnie Delaney coming up the backstretch and finishing when he was winning his Olympic medal, and I was on holidays with my cousins in Rockhill in Jimmy Woulfe's country, and there was a break in the hay saving and everybody had to go in. And I can still see him crystal clear. It's one of the clearest images in my mind. And it's extraordinary because television didn't come to Rockhill for another 7 years. And we were listening to it on the radio, and I can still see him. Eamon Doherty was Assistant Commissioner in the Gardaí the last time I was in Cabinet. He was one of the first senior Gardaí I met as Minister for Justice. And he was like a midwife for new ministers. He put them into their state cars when they arrived, and he took them out of them when they departed. And he was there at my coming and my going, and he did it all with grace and elegance and courtesy. So I'm glad to be back here tonight, on behalf of you, to be able to make a small presentation as well to Eamon Doherty, a man known widely in the Garda Síochána and at a wider level as the Doc. So first of all, I'll make a small presentation to a former chairman of Crossbar, Ronnie Delaney, and then to the present chairman of Crossbar, Eamon Doherty.
my thanks go to Paul, our new secretary, and to the Limerick City Sports Advisory Body. And our good wishes go to Sean O'Donovan, who is in hospital at the moment and who was to be here reading a citation tonight. We wish him well. To my CEO, who, when he can find me on occasions such as this, turns a blind eye, and I'm glad he does. But I thank him and the committee for their support and down through the years. I'd like to thank the hotel for a lovely meal here this evening. And indeed, my friend of many years, I would like to thank John McCluskey, Chief Executive of the ACC, for their tremendous support over the years. I thank you, John, and I thank the ACC. You, the distinguished gathering, for being here, I thank you. There is lovely music which will be coming on as soon as I stop gathering, but I have a few, as I said, I'm beholden to make my thanks. I'm indebted, and we're all indebted to the judges who agonised long and carefully over the selection. There were people who in other years would have been winners, but who, because of the quality of the field this year, were not winners, or were not recipients. I would like to thank the media, the press and the radio. They're indeed, like the award winners here. They're behind the cameras, they're behind the scenes. But we should never forget that without the media, our sport wouldn't be as popular. Whatever the sport is, would not be as popular as it is. And in Limerick, sport is number one. Now, I would like to mention particularly Tony McMahon and Mark Keaveney of Arlow, Paddy Moroney on South of the Limerick Leader, and Rose Rush of the Limerick Post, and indeed Tim O'Brien of Tim O'Brien and Associates, who was good enough to give us a spot under his programme earlier on in the year when we were looking for nominations. I thank you one and all. If I have forgotten anybody, I do apologise for it. Now, I would ask the award winners to stay where you are. We want a group photograph, and the music will start within 15 minutes. And do wait for it, because it is indeed lovely music. The really enjoyable part of the evening is just beginning. Thank you.